And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am he, your griot, here to tell you a story. So, what time is it? 10:40, and I'm here by the lake having breakfast. Sheriff's over there, Frank, and other usual suspects are around. Someone jumped in and jumped out. So yesterday I was at the Counterculture with the usual suspects and had loads of fun. I hope you enjoyed that show. And anyone who enjoys my YouTubes, I would really, really appreciate some support on my PayPal. And that is dudewake42@gmail, dudewake42@gmail. Now, don't believe a word I say. These are all stories. It has nothing to do with reality, right? You know, people going on and on and on here about politics, and I just went around and said, hey, relax. Don't go there, you know. So if you have any kind of this is my gnome hat. I was coming here to support my buddies who are gathering on the highway to raise money for the poor folk, but I don't know where they are. So that's why I decided to have breakfast. What else is happening? So I've been going through stuff, selling my books to my book boy, and clearing out things, getting ready for winter, right? So there's spring cleaning and also making sure everything is shipshape and Bristol tight, right? So what else? So anyway, so I've been clearing out my books, selling them, and finding ones. Oh, look at this. So there's a really good book called Conversations with God, right? And I bet you dollars to dollars. Who's read that? Anyone has a comment? But I really like it. It's characteristic of almost my style of writing. So what else is shaking? You know, I was looking at the old internet on what's going on, and here's
fabricated a lot about what happened on January 6th in order to impeach him again. It didn't work. He came back, then they indicted him. It didn't work. He became more popular.
Tucker, what's his name?
Then they indicted him 3 more times, and every single time his popularity rose. So if you begin with criticism, then you go to protest, then you go to impeachment. Now you go.
So you can see that the powers that be want Trump in the mix, right? Because if they really didn't want him to be involved, all they'd have to do is ignore him. You know, not talk about him. I mean, all of this is like billions of dollars worth of free advertising for him, right? Well. But anyway, poor waitress. She looks like she's trying to hide. But anyway, so it's obvious they want Donald Trump in the mix, right? And whether he becomes president or not, it doesn't really matter because he's in the mix, right? And he's indicted 4 places. I mean, that's a lot of free entertainment, right? And I hope the one in Georgia stays in Georgia and doesn't go to federal. Because I love to watch. I would just love to watch this on television, right? It would be like the OJ hearings, right? And so every time he has to come to jam in, some adepts, yes, this is some adepts. So to be, you know, so I'm reading the trilogy of the conversations with God again, and the guy, I like the style. So God's going on with this guy about, hey, I have to, if you want to be there with me, all it takes is like that. But you guys are so distracted, you'll never, like me, I'm thinking about my breakfast, right? Because I'm hungry, haven't really eaten. And so, I've been keeping down my blood sugar by not eating, because can't afford any medicines, and it's probably good I don't take them. But anyway, so God's going on about you guys are so distracted. Come on, stop worrying about stuff. And he goes on about all you have to do is say, I want this to happen, and it'll happen. The fact that you can't believe that it's going to happen is very similar to the Course in Miracles. That's another book I unheard. And so there are many, many great books. Who's reading them? I don't know. Not many. So yeah, so I was here before anybody else, and everyone else is getting their breakfast. So you know what TIP stands for? To ensure proper service. That's what TIP stands for. Now the girl did check me into the internet here. I couldn't do it, so she did it, and so she'll get a little something for that because she. Anyway, so what else? So Jane, what's shaking, girl? What's happening in your world? You talking to God? So I talk to God all the time, right? And so I'm like, he gave 5 categories of people. People who are there all the time, plugged in, 190%. Right, not me. The people who are there mostly, 80%, not me. 60%, that's me. 40% of the time, I'm a moron, right? Like right now, I'm salivating like a dog, waiting for breakfast, right? So, she hasn't come around to fetch my coffee. And like I said, she is not the server type. She's just walking around the place, right? And looking at her phone. And now, is that a generational thing? I don't know, because I remember when I was a youngster, people always going, "You young people are so terrible. You can't do anything." Blah blah blah. Right? Sounds like me, But no, I'm actually very pro youngsters. Right? I'm more judgmental of people my own age. We're stuck. Right? The thing is, there's thoughts, right, and feelings. And thoughts are manifested from external forces. Feelings are the things that you have internalized, not internalized, that you have inside of you. That feelings are your conversation with God. So when you feel something, you're feeling God, right? And so when you're having deja vu, you're God's trying to, wake up, moron, listen to me, right? So we are driven by not our feelings, but by our thoughts. And again, like I said, they're externalized. They come in from outside. It's what people said to you, things you hear, blah blah blah. The blah 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 of the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow that Shakespeare was talking about, right? So, so this show is a show of comments. You're supposed to comment. So, lots of purple hearts, a big smiley face, some thumbs up, more purple hearts. I appreciate that. I do. I feel right. But what's going on in your life? So how y'all doing, right? 9:46. Do 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 do. Boo 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 boo. I found her CD. I found some. I've been going through stuff, and so I've been uncovering stuff. Right. So change, change. Boo boo boo. So what else? If I can't get any comments to you, I'll just go back to
You go to impeachment. Now you go to indictment, and none of them work. What's next? I mean, graph it out, man. We're speeding toward assassination, obviously, and no one will say that. But I don't know how you can reach that conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, they have decided, permanent Washington, both parties have decided that there's something about Trump that's so threatening to them, they just can't have it.
Okay, this is bonkers. I flagged this immediately after Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson did that sit-down, that counter-programming to the GOP debate. And the first exchange of questions that went on for an uncomfortably long period of time was a series of questions about Jeffrey Epstein, which Tucker Carlson said he was asking. Do you believe that he killed himself? He says, I'm asking these questions, Donald Trump, because I think that he was killed because of his politics, because of what he could reveal about all these important people in the world. And I think that you might also have a target on your back. I think we have a bit of that clip. Let's watch it.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with, beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say that he did, but
The pages told this discovery is being considered the discovery of the millennium, and through it, you will be able to end your illness and restore your health with divine help. Be it diabetes, high blood pressure, overweight, joint pain, ringing in the ears, it doesn't matter. All of them can be cured using sound waves. In 1934, in partnership with the University of Southern California, Dr. Raymond Rife conducted clinical trials using sound frequencies on 16 terminally ill cancer patients, and in just 3 months, patients were cured with the use of the frequencies without pain or toxins. But after the U.S. government found out, instead of honoring him with his great discovery, they destroyed his laboratory and started a series of persecutions and documents. This is because this secret
really
could bankrupt the pharmaceutical industry, and they are already trying at all costs to shut me up too. I have prepared a quick presentation showing you all about this secret considered the discovery of the millennium. In this presentation, you will learn how to live a healthy, long life just by using this divine cure every day in the morning. Tap the button below now to watch the presentation while
Our first samples of the moon, brought with the Apollo missions in the 60s and early 70s, helped us learn a lot about the celestial body. More than 50 years later, though, there's still a lot that we don't know, or things that we thought we knew that aren't quite so clear-cut. The Apollo samples led scientists to believe that the moon's surface was dry. But a 2009 Indian mission detected hydrated minerals on the moon's surface. A closer look at the data showed ice in many of the moon's shadowed areas. Almost a decade after the initial detection, even more water was discovered in the sunlit regions of one of the moon's craters. So there's water on the moon, but
We don't know how much there is. We're trying to do these measurements.
Yeah, the Abrams tanks really fall one of the sort of top trumps of global tanks, incredibly capable. They've been around since 1980, but they've got a turbine engine rather than a normal diesel engine, which is very, very thirsty of fuel, but it does mean it's very reliable. 62 tons, travels up to almost 50 miles an hour, $4 million a pop. But why are they late to the party? Because we were talking about tanks earlier on in the year. Part of that was because when there was the initial conversation about tanks for Ukraine, America did not want to paint this as an America versus Russia campaign. Now, the Brits stepped forward and said, we'll provide Challenger 2. Then there was pressure brought to bear. The Germans agreed that Leopard 2 could be deployed. And of course, that ended up to about 300 tanks that were eventually agreed. At that stage, America said, right,
Welcome to the Making Sense podcast. This is Sam Harris. Just a note to say that if you're hearing this, you are not currently on our subscriber feed and will only be hearing the first part of this conversation. In order to access full episodes of the Making Sense podcast, you'll need to subscribe at samharris.org. There you'll find our private RSS feed to add to your favorite podcatcher, along with other subscriber-only content. We don't run ads on the podcast, and therefore it's made possible entirely through the support of our subscribers. So if you enjoy what we're doing here, please consider becoming one. I recently appeared on several other podcasts and was asked what I thought about a few prominent people in our culture. Some are prominent only at the fringe, or should only be there. But of course, the fringe is now everywhere, courtesy of social media. Every part of culture, science, public health, war, economics, the lives of famous people, conspiracy theories about everything and nothing, all information is in the process of being macerated by billions of tiny mouths and then spit back again and lapped up by others. So what is in fact mostly digital vomit at this point is being spread everywhere and celebrated as some new form of nutrition. So there are people who we probably shouldn't know about, but do. And there are people who should have no influence at all, but their influence is enormous. One of these people is Andrew Tate, and another is Donald Trump. Both of these men are assholes, and I said as much on these other podcasts. However, many people appear confused about what it means to be an asshole. These confused people are themselves assholes. People believe that calling someone like Tate or Trump an asshole says very little about them and all too much about the person making the allegation. Such a person is believed just doesn't like Tate or Trump's style. He finds their brashness offensive. And taking offense at brashness is just a sign of weakness. Only someone who doesn't feel strong himself could find another's arrogance or bombast threatening. There's a word for such a person. Wading deep into the vomitorium now, right of center, where Tate and Trump are truly kings. Such a person is
just recently, Tucker went over to Budapest, and he kind of asked for forgiveness on the behalf of American citizens for what's going on. And he explains the insanity over here of believing that Ukraine is one F-16 away from defeating Russia. You know, we've heard these stories out there that they're winning the war. It's David versus Goliath. With the help of the United States funding them, they can fight for our democracy over here, over there. And a lot of people honestly do believe that Putin's in a bunker hiding out, that he's just a door knock away from being taken into custody in America, helping Ukraine win the war.
Who thinks that? Even the official narrative isn't saying that.
What official narrative? Not the official narrative. The official narrative is still saying that
they're losing their will to have tons of
adverse. What do they call it? Casualty.
Yeah.
Take a listen to what Tucker says over there in Budapest.
And in the United States right now, the overwhelming majority of the population believes that the Ukrainian army is this close to defeating the Russian army. And, you know, again, I think it's totally fair to root for the Ukrainian army. I'm not.
Are they all watching Breaking Points? Are they all watching Crystal Ball and Kyle?
Well, what if just watching MSNBC and CNN and even Fox?
Even Breaking Points is saying it's not going that good.
Are they?
Yes.
Are they finally telling the truth?
Finally.
Yes.
Well, how long did it take? Because they were gung ho for the war when it started.
Didn't Marianne Williamson on the show say that she thought they were she was supportive still of what was going on?
Still, yeah, you got to fight. You can't let Putin do imperialism. Is what she said.
Nikki Haley the other day still thinks that they're going to win.
That's what I'm saying. History started over in 2016 because that's how nobody can remember. Like we were just about to win in Afghanistan.
Remember that? Yeah.
And Iraq.
We were just about to
talk about
the surge. We did the surge.
Okay, well, there was colorful charts and everything that kind of helped that situation. Here we go.
Attacking anybody. I'm sorry that Russia invaded Ukraine. I'm not taking the Russian position on this. I'm merely saying that the fact of what is actually happening, not what we wish would happen, but what is happening, is essential if we want to make up our minds about what to do next. And in the United States, virtually everyone I've ever met believes that Ukraine is winning. Now, if you think about this for a moment, here you have one country which has 100 million more people than the other country and has much deeper military industrial capacity, can make more missiles, make more bullets, make more tanks than the other country. So over time, the bigger country is almost certain to win, correct? This is a physics principle. Right. It's not a statement of allegiance.
So, I mean, again, these people are morons because they're showing you, hey, look at this over here, and not understanding what's over there, right? So, what's going on in Ukraine is a soap opera, right? And both the Vlads are reading the script. And they're going to fight this war until the last Ukrainian is alive. And all the weapons that Germany and England and the United States are giving to Ukraine are old stuff, just like the stuff that the Russians are fighting with. Russians have more old stuff than NATO does, but still. Abrams is a 30-year-old tank. So is the Leopard. So is the English tank. So it's like a real issue that they're just fighting and fighting and fighting, and people are dying and dying. And Russia is blowing up civilians. You know, the Ukrainians aren't blowing up civilians as much as the Russians are, and they're doing this on purpose for shamanic reasons, for you know, the neo-insane clown party. You know, that's where we have been politically, you know, for the last 600 years. No, 16,000 years. And you know what's going on here is a good example. You know, in this restaurant, there's only 2 people here, and they're backed up. Right? And I came here first, and everyone else. It's Butler Trading Post. Button Town. Do. Do. 23 minutes. So half an hour. Do. So, what else can I say? Well, let's see what else we can skip up here. Bernie goes full-blown Trump derangement syndrome. Here we go. Excuse me, ma'am.
Primaries, ruled out a third presidential bid and endorsed Biden for re-election. But on Saturday, Sanders was back in New Hampshire, one of those early presidential states where he won both the 2016 and 2020 primaries, to share what he called his concrete agenda for the future of the Democratic Party at the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. Of course, when you go to New Hampshire, it sparks some speculation about his own political future.
It is no secret that I want Joe Biden to be reelected president.
Oh my God!
If that is going to happen, if we are going to defeat creeping authoritarianism and right-wing extremism, there has got to be an ideological change of course.
So he's just full-blown Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
He's no longer upset at the system that made people desperate enough to vote.
It's doing good. How about you?
Could I have a refill of coffee
Of course you can.
and a to-go cup so I can pour it in myself and don't have to wait?
Absolutely. And do you want cream and sugar more? Or
Well, just cream.
just cream?
Yeah, I'm sweet enough.
Huh?
I'm sweet enough.
Oh, you had.
So what's what's your name? Bridget. Thank you, Bridget. So I could have been, but no. Anyway, so
For Donald Trump, he's acting like Donald Trump is the problem. Bernie Sanders is a fraud and an enemy of America, and that's not an exact. That guy's a fucking liar. That guy's a liar, and what he's doing is hurting this country. He's an enemy of the. He's just as big as enemy as Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders doesn't give a shit about this country. Bernie Sanders cares about Bernie Sanders.
Do you think?
Yeah, we're cooked to order, so we don't have it sitting back already. So.
Yep. Thank you.
Why, that's a lot. Oh, good one. There you go.
Thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome.
Yep. Okay.
That he's like doesn't know that he's lying.
He knows he's lying. He knows exactly what he's doing. Kurt, he's the one who taught me how fucked up the system is. He's the one who told me we can't do this anymore.
Can't do this anymore. George Carlin said this 40 years ago. Right? Just look up George Carlin. It's HBO special. He penned this all in the 80s, 90s, and early 00s, right? And he wrote some really good books too. And a lot of people wrote a lot of books. I mean, it's not like we don't know what's going on. It's not like we can't make the change. It's not like if everyone would just wake up. I mean, there's 3 people here. How long does it take to make breakfast? I bet you dollars or donuts. It gets here, it's going to be cold and full of crap, right? Because, that place I was at yesterday, right? There were 70 people in that restaurant, right? 70, right? And we all got a breakfast within 10 minutes. From when you gave the order, you got your breakfast within 10 minutes. And it wasn't like Burger King, no, they didn't have it like just under the red lamp. No, they made it too, right? And the owner was on the grill. Thank you, girl.
There you go.
Can I ketchup, butter? Butter.
Butter?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't look like it. Thank you, dear. I need biscuits, right? Look like they just came out of a package. And they gave one slice of that place gave me 4 slices. Warm. Good sausage. Not the best, but C plus. Can you see the lake up there? Whoa! I can see it. I must knock this over. It keeps it back and forth.
He's the one who told me we shouldn't fear Donald Trump, but the system that gave us Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders knows exactly what he's doing, just like crystal ball. They're all frauds and charlatans, and they don't give a shit about working people because they're not working people.
Oh, well, I was going to say, it comes off like his abrupt turnaround. It comes off like someone who's being blackmailed so much to me. Like,
a lot of people say that.
Of course they got him.
Like,
of course they got something on him.
It's so radically different than what he said that you're like, oh.
He used to start every speech in 2015 and 2016 by saying, it sounds like you're ready for a revolution.
Yeah.
He hasn't said that since, and now he's saying we got to vote for Joe Biden because Donald Trump is a threat. He knows that's bullshit, and he's letting his own party right now criminalize their political opponents.
And Donald Trump is part of the act. All Donald Trump likes is the attention. I mean, when he was 4 years president, he didn't do anything. He put one bill through Congress. And that bill was giving the richest 1%, half of 1%, a $62 trillion tax break. 62 trillion. When they say, "Oh, we have a deficit, we got to cut the budget." Well, austerity. Oh, yeah. I don't know why this coffee tastes like tea. Yeah, tastes like tea. So, I got a choice, This place with the internet, the player store with no internet. Really.
We had a mistake. I was brewing tea. She gave you tea.
I know.
Oh, this is coffee.
Good.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, that's why Jimmy Dore. I love the boy, but You get paid off too. That's why, me, I'll give you the straight skinny and yep, that is coffee. Coffee and tea. No, you have to realize that, a high table, powers that shouldn't be. They have an agenda, and it sits. These potatoes aren't even cooked. Mm. Mm. Well, what are you going to do? You can make, here's a good example. This is a D minus breakfast, right? But I ate it. It took 37 minutes to get here. And little bubbles over on the side. So you can either be an asshole, which I am. 40% of the time I am. But the other 60%, I'm my angelic self. And, I was sitting in I made good coffee this morning. My Mr. Coffee that I found in a garbage pail, still works. Pretty much half my clients I got at the dumpster, and the other half I got Praise Jesus thrift store, and those people love me because everybody in there is just out of jail and struggling with addiction. I go in there and talk to everyone individually. Not every day, but at least twice a month. And if somebody brings me food, which a lot of people do because I help a lot of people. They may have money. They know I have no money. So they bring me food. A lot of the food I can't eat. Corn, I have no teeth. Apples. Now, I can slice it off the cob and boil it up. But actually, when I go to church and they give me a can of cream corn, much better. Tastes better. It's already pre-broken down, so my body can assimilate it. And yeah, it has all kinds of additives and this and that. But you can. So where'd you get those potatoes?
Huh?
Where'd you get those potatoes?
We cut them.
Really?
Yeah, he dices them, and if you get hash browns, he uses a shredder and shreds them. So it's a straight potato. You like them or don't like them?
No. Well, they weren't cooked enough, and I have no teeth.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So
And I'm sorry about the teeth thing. She didn't tell me she was brewing. So we fixed it, right? Did she fix it? Okay.
If you could, dump the tea out and put
Of
some
course.
coffee in it.
Of course I can.
Thank you. Thank you, B. Thank So, unless they've got a machine, I don't know how they.
There you go.
So let's see your palm.
Oh, wow.
The hand you write with. Put it up like
I write with left.
Okay. So let's see. You're kind of close to the vest, so you never spill the beans. People
Never
have no
spill.
idea who you are.
Absolutely.
A little passive aggressive there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of deja vu. The mounds of prosperity, pretty good. You know what the CB talk is? Hey, what's your 20? Good
Oh,
buddy,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You always miss your 20. You're either ahead of it or behind it.
I cannot argue with that at all.
So if you were conscious aware,
I'd
and-
say behind. I'm always behind.
Right.
But whatever.
whatever, but you could step right on it, and then
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
right,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
and that is when you let God take over.
Absolutely.
You know that song about the girl who's really hard and she's trying
I
to get
struggle with letting God lead. I absolutely.
Well, we
struggle
all
with
do.
that.
We're all
Oh,
human
yeah. Oh,
beings,
yeah.
which means we're all morons. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
and now we can do our best. Maybe average human being does best maybe 3% of the time.
And that's if we are trying.
Well, you have to try
Right.
to do your best. You got to be conscious intent and conscious aware,
Right.
right? You have to be breathing, You
I
don't-
don't breathe. I
no.
don't breathe. I don't ever breathe.
right? And so that's what prayer is about, to make you breathe. Because when you can breathe, that's when you can connect to God.
Absolutely.
There's a really good book called Conversations with God trilogy. It's really good because this guy who wrote the book, I mean, he's pretty funny. He's always a moron, and God's always telling him what to do.
Right, right. Listens or don't listens, whatever, but yeah.
Well, the guy's trying.
Right.
So
We all
that's
try.
why. That's no.
We don't all try.
Look how screwed up the world is.
Yeah, true.
None of those people are trying.
They're trying.
No,
to
no,
do the
no.
opposite.
Right.
I mean,
No,
they're trying
no. They so when you're
for
unconscious.
evil. In my opinion.
No. When people, the devil made me do it. No, you did it, woman. And the bottom line is, evil comes when you aren't conscious of God's love for you.
Right.
That's
You
it.
aren't
You're-
letting him be in
I
control.
read the Bible all the time, and I'm a big Old Testament guy, and so God's always disappointed with humanity, right?
How could he not be?
But he's like a tilted boyfriend, and he's always calling Israel, the harlot and the this and the that, right? And guys are always being turned to salt. Now God isn't turning anyone to salt. God doesn't do any of that horrible stuff.
Right.
Those people do it,
To themselves.
right?
Right.
So
want to interrupt, but Kenneth really needs you.
Okay. I'm
Kenneth
sorry.
needs you. Back to work.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to be out here.
But remember to breathe. No, that's not breathing. That's breathing. Right, so I could have been, right? And she knew I was, 44 minutes waiting for breakfast, and there's only 3 people here. It's like, please, they should give me the job. I used to, I ran a grill, a restaurant, out of a burnt out bus in Asheville. It's called the Blue Bus. And if you go to Asheville now, there's some kind of English bus that's like no one even remembers. And the Blue Bus, I started cooking meals in it, and then this homeless guy came in. He was an amazing chef, and he was from El Salvador, and he had that food down. So, and there was no restaurants in downtown Asheville, right? Period. Zip, none. On the edge of town was, 3 Brothers and the Greek store, and that was it. And, McDonald's and Burger King and stuff like that, KFC, but that was it. Now Asheville is like, I just came back from Asheville, and it's got, every block has 20, tap places and breweries and restaurants and you name it, right? So we were in the BB&T building, which is now a hotel, right? And condos. The top, it's about 22 stories tall. It's the tallest building in town. And not now. They have other hotels that are taller than the BB&T building. They have 20 tall buildings downtown that are all hotels and fancy restaurants and places to get married and all that kind of stuff, right? So, but back in the day when I was there, 91 to 99, there was nothing going on. 96, Asheville paid off its last penny on its depression debt. And that's when real estaters and bankers came in and bought up everything, right? Because they were just, by that time, the Biltmore House was running and getting better and better. And there were a few other things getting better and better. We had Bell's Share as a party that we should just throw for ourselves on the street. Got to the point where downtown development took it over and they had 100,000 people coming to it, and there was nothing made of mountain crafts, and all the music was coming out of the corporations, and they legalized you could walk around drunk, right? You could have a drink in your hand, and they had people they didn't sell food; they just sold booze, right? So that was the problem, so that's what's going to happen in this next one, right? And so Banner Elk is the mobster central, and that's where Angelo has his little town, Angelo Town, and it's everyone who works there is basically a slave, and indentured servant, and so coffee and tea, yep. So that's enough for Jimmy Dore. So Jimmy Dore is great, right? He does, like, he's not as good as the guy who did the Nightly Show or whatever that show did, Jon Stewart. Now, John was righteous all the way through, right? And that's, he did it for X amount of time, and then he had to move on. See what this guy.
Stop stuffing sopping wet bags of ice into your cooler. I've got a brand new fridge on wheels that keeps your food ice cold.
You met Jeffrey Epstein once.
Yep.
Talk to me about what that's like, coming face to face with somebody of that caliber.
Whatever that means. Well, one thing is that there is a physiological reaction that corresponds to this phrase that, the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Like, that's a real physiological feeling. I don't know whether the hair actually does that, but it's exactly what it feels like. You're meeting somebody who is unholy, and one of the most interesting things is that he was beckoning into a world that didn't seem to exist but for him as the doorman. I think that's one of the things that freaked out, seemed to exist but for him as the doorman. I think that's one of the things that freaked out a lot of these rich people is that he felt rich in a movie sense, which is not something that you find among actually rich people.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of very wealthy people don't own an island. Islands are really tough to maintain. I'm obsessed with islands, and in general, I have to be obsessed with islands that have airports run by other people because have populations on them. But every rich person starts to wonder, can I afford an island, or how many jets? If you look at Jeffrey Epstein's wealth, it was like gold beaten into gold foil so that it could cover a vast area and leave the impression of a solid gold life. But it was really probably on a mid 9-figure fortune
that had been used to buy islands and planes, which is not what any 9-figure person is going to do.
So you had a felt sense, an embodied sense of discomfort?
Oh, hell yeah.
And where did that come from?
The fact that he had a lipstick camera pointed at me from an art object, that he laid a table that was preposterously long and thin with a tablecloth made of an American flag to make it look like a coffin so that I would spill my coffee on the flag of my own country. I mean, the fact that he looked like a mutant Ralph Lauren with this kind of lubricious quality, and he's talking all of this science and market stuff, and nothing adds up, and there's an heiress bouncing on his knee to get her boobs to jiggle to see whether it can distract. I mean, it's like one of these crazy scenes where nothing about it was normal. There was no trace of a normal world.
That sounds like a script from a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it, John Travolta is like putting a gun to your head and forcing you to drink and break a code in a minute. Yeah, like that part of it. And then there was some sort of like, remember that story, The Most Dangerous Game, where a man invites you to his island so he can hunt you? This was scary, and it was meant to be scary.
Sounds menacing.
Well, I think his product was silence. People think that his product was sex or finance, but it was silence. I'm pretty sure.
What's that mean?
If you're scary enough, look, rich people can get sex, but they can't necessarily get people to shut up afterwards. So my take on it instantly was, this is not an actual human. This is a construct of someone's. Someone has created a fake human being called Jeffrey Epstein. Mysterious currency trading financier with crazy rules so that no one would ever invest with him. And I think that was to keep people from seeking his investment services. I mean, he's labeled disgraced financier, but nobody has a record of trading with him. He was sitting there, he comes into the meeting and he says, well, Eric, I was just doing some currency trading. And I thought about that scene that you sometimes see, and as a meme with Steve Buscemi with a skateboard over his shoulder.
Hello, fellow teenagers. Hello, fellow financial traders.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, you don't really look like a rich guy who trades in markets.
The thing that I'm finding myself intrigued by here is it takes a moderate amount of cognitive horsepower to be able to piece together this theater that you sat down at.
Yeah.
Deployed in a nefarious, malicious, manipulative way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's smart.
What do you mean it's smart? Say more.
It's not something that could be done by a simple mind.
You think he did it?
Oh, he has a team of manipulators?
No, when I say I think he was a construct, I literally mean that. I think he was constructed, like fitted with a story.
Oh, so you think he was a plant?
No, I think he was a construct.
What's that? Okay, you're going to have to dig in.
I think Jeffrey Epstein, super genius financier, was not a thing that existed. Where did the money come from?
Where did he come from? Long Island.
You're going to mumble Lex Wexner? Okay, so that's what you mumble. But then, there's this missing fortune of Robert Maxwell and this fortune of Jeffrey Epstein that we can't explain. Are those the same fortune? And it's like a conservation of money principle, that if you have a fortune that's missing and you have a fortune that can't be explained and they're connected by Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't know. Why is it that no hedge funds, what is it? They file form, I forget, it's 13F. There's certain forms that you have to file. Nobody's ever asked for these things. Who's his prime broker? Where has somebody gone over the prime brokerage? What are his trades? he would have to move the market if he was, doing a yard of euros or Swiss francs or who knows what, as like $1 billion. That would move the market. So there's no way you can fake retroactively a hedge fund of immeasurable size that trades currencies. I don't think he was a currency trader. He told me he was a currency trader.
So when you say a construct, who constructs? Who's the builder?
I don't know. I would imagine some version of the intelligence community. Sometimes somebody's cover gets blown. We have a very famous, unfortunate story of Eli Cohn with the Mossad, where Eli Cohn was an Egyptian Jew who was fitted with a backstory that he was an Argentinian playboy who had made a fortune in Argentina, but was Arabic in origin. And then he moves to Damascus and he takes out an apartment where he holds orgies and becomes the best friend of Hafez al-Assad, right? And so that's an example of a story we know. We know how the intelligence communities of the world create people who don't really exist.
Construction of, I know that this is just a one-time thing here that you got to see, but the construction of the coffin-looking American flag, the spilling of the coffee, this weird power play thing that's going on, that seems, now that you say that, it wasn't him even pulling his own strings, perhaps. It makes a lot more sense, but even that degree of sophistication, I learned this from Daniel Schmachtenberger. We sat down and he spent some time with particularly powerful people.
Yeah.
And he told me this really harrowing story of somebody who has both the desire and the means to treat themselves like an apex predator against their own kind. And they said so. They broke the fourth wall about this and said apex predators don't care about the prey, but they saw their own kind as prey, who isn't rate limited by the resources, who can not only dream to have this, plus have the motivation or lack of virtue or integrity to go ahead and consider doing it, and then has the capacity, the assets to be able to enact it.
Sure.
And it's reminding me, it's giving me this same something. It feels like it's up on the top of my head. It's giving me some sort of a sense like that.
This was intended to be terrifying. It wasn't an accident. It was intended to be as fascinating as it could possibly be, which it was, and terrifying at the same time. And it achieved both. It achieved both objectives. I was given an opportunity to meet him again. I didn't know what to do. The other thing that I just found really weird is that he knew about my research. And it turned out that he was connected to my graduate department at Harvard. So he had a connection to the Harvard math department, unbeknownst to me. I don't know when that began. I know two of the professors he was connected through. But this is some unholy story. It has nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. It has to do with whatever this thing was. We tripped over a thing. We tripped over a structure. We named the structure Jeffrey Epstein.
It must be very unfortunate in some regards for whoever it was, if that's true, that was in charge of this construction, that it became that people.
Greetings and welcome to the Richard Olin Show, where every week we fight the good fight. Glad to be here with you. You know, we've had a lot of news in the UFO UAP field over the last several years, and definitely over the last few weeks and months. It's exciting, it's interesting, it's controversial. No one can agree, it seems, on what it all means. Congressional hearings, is there going to be disclosure? Is it all one big op? That goes on and on. But I really do believe, particularly since I think the last week was a little slow in terms of news on this, sometimes just to take a step back and ask some fundamental big picture questions about this phenomenon.
because I noticed these are generally not the kind of questions that are being asked, not only in the widespread media culture and general culture at large, really even among UFO researchers, UAP researchers. You don't really see them getting into some of these questions that I want to address, that I think we do not want to lose sight of. Before I do that, I just want to make one very quick announcement, which is that about a week ago, I was finally, belatedly, after so many years, able to release an audio book of a book that was always near and dear to my heart, that is UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. As a book that I originally wrote about a decade ago, and a little less than 1 year ago, I wrote a very, very long extension to that book to kind of bring it up to date to cover the last decade or so of the fascinating UFO fields. It's become a much longer book, or 1,000 years. Huge difference, mostly. And the reason is those were literate societies. There was writing there. Oddly, you don't get many stories from the Near East, what we now call the Middle East, even though that was a very literate society. You got to wonder why not. Not sure why not. Europe, yes, from England all the way through into Central Eastern Europe, even into Russia, you get a fair number of UFO accounts throughout the centuries of the pre-scientific era. Same with China and the same with Japan. Not a lot in the Near East. I'd like to know why. If you have any ideas, I would love to see your comment below. I will read it. But in any case, those are the areas where you get a lot of these sightings recorded. And most of those sightings do not involve beings connected to what we might call the UFOs. So there'll be an interesting sighting in the sky, a portent, as people will have called it, or something, a sign from the gods or from God, is how those were typically. It's one or the other. So it's either like a sign in the sky, what we might call a UFO, or someone will say, I encountered a being of some sort. I was taken someplace. You don't usually get the two of those together. So it's not like someone will stumble across a landed craft, for example, and say, oh yeah, and there was little beings associated with it. No, you don't get that. You get sightings and you get alleged encounters with entities, but usually not together. And the one thing I think it's very, very important, critically important for us to emphasize with most of these ancient sightings is that ancient world is not as reliable in the accuracy and trustworthiness of these reports, and it just has to be said. Sorry to have to say this, but it's the fact. When you look at ancient accounts of almost anything, one of the things that when you read ancient literature, you go back, whether it's UFO related or not, doesn't really matter. You will find that by our standards of today, of the 21st century, the fact is that ancient people were, as a rule, almost unbelievably superstitious, as we would.
Thank you and welcome again. Not only is the universe stranger than we think, it is stranger than we can think. So argued Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum theory. We imagine our theories uncover how things are, but from quantum particles to dark matter, at fundamental levels, the closer we get to what we imagine to be the reality, the stranger and more incomprehensible it appears to become. Might science and philosophy one day stretch to meet the universe's strangeness?
Enough of that. So, Jane asked a question here. The collapse with the removal of the first brick, that brick called corporations. Well, corporations are just a link, and it's not a wall. And you take one link out, there's another link. bricks too. If you take the brick out, there's another brick. But corporations, see, it was getting us to the fascist state, you know, and that's where we're heading next. Well, I mean, we're already there. We're in that. We're at the NICP, Neo Insane Clown Party, right? And again,
then many other questions arise. If the sun's conscious, what does it do with its consciousness? What decisions does it make? But
I mean, that's like, you know, those guys back in the 3rd century were going on about how many angels sit on a pen, right? So, anyway, I'm, you know, this breakfast was, so I'm going to go pay the bill. So, anyway, I'm going to say goodbye. I'll talk to you later.